I forgot to record. I always do that. And I have a Post-it note right here, like right on my keyboard, and I still forgot. Okay, about 30 more seconds to pop your response in the chat. All right, so now what I want you to do is just scroll through the chat. Everybody has written some types of low stakes writing that they do. And if you want to ask someone to expand on their response, then just unmute yourself and say, I would like to hear more about, so for example, I'll model. So Cheryl, I would like to hear more about your PLC non-negotiable. So would you tell us a little bit more about that?
So we have 4 gifted teachers at my school, and we all kind of have different backgrounds that we bring to the table. Me, ELA, there's a teacher that is more of a math background, one that is a SPED background. She taught inclusion and resource for a long time. And then we have a teacher who's new to our team that has a STEM background. And so we all kind of have different areas of expertise that we bring to the table. And I have preached about, and they've seen it in my classroom before I moved to Gifted, about writing into the day and what a difference it has made, and how it's just a fun way to build community in your classroom, and the things you can learn from your kids, and they can learn from each other, and they can learn from me. And just by taking that short little amount of time every day to do that. And so I modeled it for my PLC, and I showed them some of my student writing samples that came from that, and talked about the discussions that stem from that. And they said, we want to do that too. And so now it's just something that we've decided as a group, hey, this is the way we're going to all start each of our classes. And it's just become part of our norms in our PLC that we do that across the team every day.
That makes me really happy. So that it's become like part of the culture, which we talked about before. It's just, if it's part of your culture, it means it's important to you, that it's what you value. Okay, so I modeled, looking through the chat, asking Cheryl to expand. Does someone else see something that they want a colleague to expand on? Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Terica, I'm really interested in learning a little bit more about your quick writes, like the opinions and narratives that you do 3 to 4 times a week. If you wouldn't mind speaking a little bit more about that.
Sure. So this 9 weeks, we've kind of began with opinion, and we've done that like in the form of quick writes to get them in the habit of the low stakes writing that Robin was talking about. And so we basically started out with just like the would you rather. I noticed that Tracy put that in his response as well. So we found that that was something that they can, I mean, it's fun, it's silly, and they can respond to that and give their opinion and share. With the narrative quick writes, it's just like 5 to 10 minutes of just a short little prompt of that they respond to. Tell me about a time when you felt this way. We're reading right now, first 9 weeks, the one and only Ivan. And so making connections with that text will have them, like that story is about a gorilla who makes unlikely friendships with other humans and animals. And so like I give them a prompt that tells them, you know, that will ask them to write about a time that they can remember that they formed an unlikely friendship. And so it's things like that that just gets their minds turning, thinking about the text and personal experiences. And I hope I answered your question fully.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I love that idea of connecting, you know, their own experiences to the text, especially with third graders, because they have the best answers.
For sure. Okay, does somebody else see something in the chat you would like your friend to expand on?
I will ask Dylan at the end, when you say you have them share their thoughts with partners and then have them, like a few of them share with the whole class. Do you do that each time? Because I think I'm very bad, I think, about one day doing Think, Pair, Share, and then another day doing whoever wants to volunteer to respond. But I like that, having them share with partners each time and then the whole class, because then that way everybody shares at some point.
Yeah, before we went hybrid, that was something we did at the end of every writing of the day. They would turn and they had a dedicated partner that, like, I tried to have the desk kind of set up in a way where they had that dedicated person that they would speak to each day. So before we would do like a whole group share out, I would have them turn and they would read their response to their partners and kind of have a discussion surrounding that. And then I use popsicle sticks, and I would usually that way just keep some, level of like randomness to it. I would pull 2 or 3 and have them share, if they were comfortable, what it is that they shared with their partner. And when we went hybrid, I tried to do it with breakout rooms and stuff like that to varying levels of success. But since we're going to be coming back to traditional next week, I'm planning on re-implementing that again when we have all of our kids back in there.
Okay, does someone have a question for a friend?
I think, I don't know if I want to hear it expanded or just hear it repeated, but at the end of Catherine's where it says, I want to do less grading and more assessment or targeted instruction. I guess you could speak to that, or we could just, let it be heard again, because it can't be said enough, I think.
Yeah, so I wrote about we do at least one form, usually 2 to 3 forms of low stakes writing every single class period. Like I tell them, it's even a joke now. Like if we read something and we discuss it, I'm like, all right, what's next? I'm like, oh, we're gonna write about it. But I have this really bad habit of, if they write something and it has like evidence and we've spent time on it and I've modeled and whatever, I really want to grade it. And I recognize that, I don't always need to grade it. Sometimes they just need the feedback and that's all they need. But sometimes as a teacher, it's hard when, you put the time investment into it, they put the investment into it, and you want to grade it and reward them for what they did. But at the same time, everything shouldn't be something that's graded. Sometimes it's just to learn and get better. And that's something that I want to improve on. It's just not grading quite as much as I do, because Dylan can tell you this year I have kind of like, I'm drowning at the moment and I'm kind of like trying to pull myself out of it. But yeah, that's my goal for this year. Sometimes I just need to assess and not grade.
Okay. I think we have time for one more.
I was interested in Lauren's reply when you mentioned, Lauren, that you will have your students to write creatively using a writing model from a poem. And so I was just wanting to know if you can expand on that. Like, is it like them using it as a mentor and they're replicating that poem, or how do you do that?
Just because I know you're familiar with this poem from the Summer Institute, we did that I Am From poem. And there's a line where it talks about the grandfather losing, was it a finger or something, or I can't remember now, like to the auger. And, of course, after we had a pretty, we went through, we noticed things, and we had all this discussion, and I told them that eventually we're going to lead up to them writing their own. And so I had them listing out things, and I had noticed the previous day that there was a lot of sections they were really not touching on. So what I decided to do is to do a series of bell work. So one of the things is I did a 6 words or less, where you have to talk about a family story that's repeated often, kind of like how that grandfather lost a limb to that auger, and you had to tell it in 6 words or less. And so that was just a creative writing piece that was just to generate some ideas for them. And eventually that was it wasn't graded. It was just to get them to do something when they first got in there. But then the next day when they started to actually write their poem, a lot of them can we use that since we did that? I'm like, yeah, sure, that'd be fine. Which was kind of the whole point anyways, was for them to get that. So it ended up turning into a high stakes later. But for that point, it was low stakes. And sometimes giving them, if there was a metaphor in a poem, and I wanted them to practice metaphor, I say, I would tell them the line in the poem, I said, they're comparing this to this for this reason. Now I want you to come up with a similar metaphor where, and it'll go along with some kind of theme that we are focusing for that unit. So they're still trying to keep bringing up the things that we're learning in the other texts. So some of it's mentor and some of it's just to reinforce some themes.
Okay, great. So, so we all understand the value of routine writing. It builds fluency. It can also build writing skills. A couple of you mentioned would you rathers. Tracy did and Terica did. And so that is one of the strategies that is in your routine writing module in Canvas. And we're going to look at it in detail tonight. I think that, so Tracy, you know, I've done tons of would you rather with the Forest County teachers. And it can be as light or as deep and complex, you know, as you want it to be. And so I've put together a little a professional learning experience on would you rather, teaching teachers how to really make that high utility. So use it for like some real depth and complexity of thought and to teach writing skills from it. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to tonight do the would you rather section from the Canvas course. So like I said earlier, you only have a week to do the whole routine writing. So we're going to do 2 of the sections tonight. Would you rather and say me matter. And I want you to really think about the depth and complexity and all the things that your students will learn and be able to do from just these 2 routine writing strategies in your classroom. So even though they're low stakes, they are very high utility and they make a huge difference in student writing. So let me share my screen. And I'm just going to walk through that's not what I meant to share first. I meant to share the Canvas page. So here we go. Would you rather? And this is in your Canvas course. And so what you're going to see when you go there is that would you rather can be very frivolous, okay? And if you Google would you rather, you're going to find things like this, like would you rather be Superman or Batman? And then the kids write, you know, I'd rather be Superman because, or I'd rather be Batman because. Or it might be something like, would you rather have a pet dragon or a pet unicorn? So that's really almost kind of frivolous, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but you can get a little bit more depth from would you rather. You can make it a little more thought-provoking if you go deeper with your prompt, like, would you rather meet your great-great-great-great-great-grandmother or your great-great-great-great-great-grandchild? Would you rather learn a foreign language or learn how to code? So you get a little more depth of thought. And even just doing that type, either the frivolous or the more thought-provoking, can help kids build writing fluency, and it can build a classroom community. You can do turn-in talks or whole class discussions. But what I want to share with you tonight is how you can kick that up a notch and really use it to improve student writing skills, and to teach it in such a way that it transfers to their argument writing and makes it a lot better. So at its core, what would you rather does is require students to just make a choice and then justify it with reasons. But we're going to make it more structured. So we're going to link it to argument writing. And, you know, students are often faced with making choices. This is just life choices. So they have to make choices that require some knowledge of the effects of those choices on other people or on the broader community. So, for example, if we're having students think about screen time. Like, would you rather play a game on the computer or read a physical book? Or would you rather choose a paper bag or a plastic bag? So it's a choice, right? And so what we're going to look at tonight is how to make it more in-depth, like ebook versus print book. So would you rather always use print books or always read ebooks? And then they have to use some text evidence in their response. Or would you rather go to a community college or a four-year college? And then they have to use text evidence in their response. So that's what we're going to play around with tonight. So I'm going to stop that share. And now I'm going to share the PowerPoint. And I want you to really, really think deeply while I'm talking, because then I'm going to put you in breakout rooms and you're going to actually write a would you rather paragraph that's going to be pretty complex. And you're going to share it and talk about what this process did for you. So I'm going to walk you through it. And again, this is it's in the Canvas course. You could actually use this with your students. So would you rather goes with writing standard 10. You know, we always want to link what we're doing with a standard so that we can put it in our lesson plans, justify it to our administrators, and also be able to justify what we're doing as preparing students for, you know, to be literate citizens in the world, okay? So would you rather is sort of like a writing standard 10 and a writing standard 1, which is argument. So like I said before, it can be very frivolous, it can be thought-provoking, it can be from experience, or it can be text-based. It can build classroom community if you use turn and talks. So it goes with writing standard 1. You can do it in ELA, you can do it in science. Would you rather, you can do it in social studies. Would you rather be Abraham Lincoln or George Washington? In science, a frog or a toad, okay? So we're going to link it to writing standard 1. And I just pulled out a couple of standards from 2nd and 3rd grade level. So at 2nd grade level, students have to introduce a topic, state an opinion, supply some reasons, use some linking words. At 3rd grade, they have to introduce a topic, state an opinion, provide some reasons, use some linking words and phrases. So you could start out very frivolous with would you rather, like we said earlier. And you could just say something like, would you rather be able to find anything that was lost, or every time you touch someone, they would be unable to lie? Now, you want to put in some accountability, because you remember our jobs are to make students better writers. So a lot of times people think routine writing is just like some wasted time. Like, well, let's just let our kids write so they'll feel good about themselves. Well, that is the case, right? Writing can build self-worth, self-knowledge, but we also want to be sure that we are connecting it to some sort of academic value. So rather than just putting this on the board and saying, would you rather be able to find anything that was lost, or every time you touch someone, they would be unable to lie, if you also say, state your opinion, your choice or your opinion, and list at least 2 reasons, then you're getting really, really close to this writing standard that is state your opinion and supply some reasons, right? You're linking it to the standard. So if your administrator comes in and he's like, hey, why are you doing this would you rather thing? You're like, oh, that's easy. It connects to writing standard 1. Okay. So if you really want to get kids thinking, then you can have them do this planning step. And you know, in the state writing rubric, we have that statement that says there's evidence of planning. And y'all are all familiar with that, right? So even if it's something like routine low stakes writing, we want to have our students planning. So have them go through something like this. Your choices were find everything that was lost, or touch someone and they would be unable to lie. Okay, so what are reasons? Remember, the standard says state an opinion, supply some reasons. So what are some reasons that somebody might want to be able to find everything that was lost? Well, it saves money and it saves time. Let's say that I've lost Noah's pacifier, which happens a lot, okay? If I could find that, I could save money from buying a new one, or I could save some time in going to the store, you know, and getting it, or in looking and still not being able to find it, okay? But then the why not? So what are the downsides of that is, well, you know, let's say I lost my calculator and it wasn't necessarily the newest model, but if I could find everything that was lost, my mom might say, well, you have a calculator, right? But if I couldn't find it, she might let me go to the store and I could get a new one and I could persuade her to let me get the latest model, okay? So now let's play around with this one. Touch someone and they would be unable to lie. Well, why would I choose that one? Well, the upsides are, I would know if a student wasn't telling the truth about something, or I would know what my Christmas presents are. But then the downsides of that are, well, people might get mad at me. You know, like if I said, hey, I know for a fact that you're not shooting straight with me because I just touched you and you can't lie anymore. Or I might even find out what they really think about me, right? If I touch them and said, tell me what you really think about me, I might not really want to know the truth about that, okay? So this has gone from just something frivolous to something a good bit more critical analysis and thought-provoking, and some reasons. And remember, the standard said provide reasons, okay? So then I would model for my students, and my standard says state an opinion and provide some reasons. So I can model for them and I can say, well, I'm going to choose find things that are lost. And I'm going to state my opinion like this. It is better to be able to find things that are lost than to have the ability to touch someone and make them unable to lie. Okay. And then if I say, well, you know, you have to provide reasons, 2, I might even say 3. Then my first reason is being able to find things that are lost saves me money since I don't have to replace items. And my second reason is it also saves me time because I waste a lot of time looking for items such as keys and my phone. Now, you should also have students highlight their work, highlight your opinion, highlight your reasons, okay? So let's look back at the standard. If we do this highlighting thing, then we are absolutely certain that we're teaching this standard. State an opinion, reasons. Now let's look at this linking words and phrases. Now let me go back and look, and I have since, I have also, I have because, okay? So just, that's how would you rather, you can kick it up a notch and be sure that it's linked to that standard, and then you're teaching writing standard 1. Now, you can find tons of things like that on the internet. I just Googled and found some of these. Would you rather be able to control fire or water? And you would take students through the very same process. Why would you, like why and why not for controlling fire? Why and why not for water? State your opinion and 2 reasons or 3 reasons, whatever you want your students to do, but always link it to the standard. But what we really want to do as teachers is, as soon as students are really able to do that well, bump it up. Always, as soon as they get really proficient at one thing, make it more complex. So we want to connect would you rather to text sources, because that's really what we're supposed to be teaching is source-based writing. So here's some examples. Would you rather be Abraham Lincoln or George Washington? Obviously, you would have them read text about both men. Then you would do a would you rather, and they would have to use text evidence. Frog or a toad, spring or summer, island or a peninsula. Would you rather be Charlotte or Wilbur? So literary characters. I would rather be Charlotte because, and then I would have to include some evidence from text. I would rather be Wilbur because, and I would have to use evidence from the text. And then you can bump it up even more if you have your students use sentence frames. Now, what do sentence frames do? Well, if we go back to this slide, that gives us our linking words and phrases, okay? So what I would do is create some anchor charts, hang on the wall, or either give students bookmarks to stick in their writer's notebooks, or better yet, both. I love to give students resources to refer to make them better writers, okay? So I could say, like, if we're doing Abraham Lincoln, not many people know this, but Abraham Lincoln, blah, 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 something from your text. Not many people know this, but George Washington had teeth that were made from the teeth of slaves. You can also link it to your 7th grade writing standards, or your, all of your writing standards. I'm just using 7th grade as an example, but you can teach it to that language, connect it to the language standards. So the writing standard for argument in 7th grade is support claims with reasons and evidence, introduce the claims, acknowledge alternate or opposing claims, organize your reasons and evidence, support your claims with reasoning and evidence, use credible sources and evidence from the text, words and phrases and clauses to create cohesion. And then your language standard 1 in 7th grade is coordinating conjunctions and subordinating conjunctions, okay? So you got your fanboys and your awhoopus. All right. So we always want to be teaching as many standards as possible, okay? So let's go back to the sentence frames. These are the exact sentence frames that I had on this slide. And we're going to go back and look at them as our standards. So our language standard. So we have coordinating conjunctions and subordinating conjunctions. So unmute yourself and take a stab at seeing which sentence frames link to coordinating and which link to subordinating. Anybody want to give it a go?
Would, for example, be the coordinating for fanboys?
Yes. What are the others that would be coordinating?
Any of them that have comma but, comma yet?
Yes. But I argue is coordinating. But when you look at facts, it's coordinating. Not many people know this, but is coordinating. So what are some subordinating ones in your sentence frames?
Although some people say,
Although,
while it may be true that,
while it may be true that,
Therefore,
therefore, it is clear that,
You might argue that.
okay? All right. So what are we doing? We are really bumping up would you rather, right? We're not just saying, would you rather be Superman or Batman? And your kids are writing, I'd rather be Superman because Superman, you know, whatever, and then let's share and laugh and move on. We really want to teach smarter and really link everything we do to our standards. So let's look at this example. Let's say we're doing Lincoln and Washington. Would you rather be Abraham Lincoln or George Washington? And I'm going to do my little planning table. Why I would rather be Lincoln? Why I would rather be Washington? Why I would rather not be Lincoln? Why I would rather not be Washington? And from my standard, I know I need to have some evidence, which means I've got to do some research and reading of text. And I know I need to tell some reasons. So reasons and evidence and linking words and phrases. Okay. So I'm just gonna, and see, we have opinion, reasons, linking words. I don't know why all these darn slides are in here. All right. So here's a model that I wrote. And I did opinion in green, reasons in blue, linking words and phrases in purple. And I did some subordinating conjunctions and some coordinating conjunctions, okay? Although Abraham Lincoln was a fine and noble president, I would prefer to have been George Washington because Washington ended his life happily at Mount Vernon. On the other hand, Lincoln was assassinated, which is not a good way to die. Another reason why I would prefer to have been Washington is that he freed his slaves before he died. All right. So now you have a really nice paragraph that states an opinion, has some reasons, uses linking words and phrases. It also has some counterclaims, right? Although Abraham Lincoln was a fine and noble president. All right. And we use some of the sentence frames. Although, okay. So now what I want you to do is, you've read a lot about spring and a lot about fall. So let's just say that you're in a 4th grade class and you've read an article about spring and an article about fall, and you're going to write a would you rather, and it's going to be a nice paragraph where you use coordinating and subordinating. You've got some reasons, you've got some evidence maybe from text, and you're doing a would you rather spring or fall. I want you to give it a go, try it out. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes or so. You can plop it in the chat when you're finished. And I'll kind of get you started. So spring. Let's just kind of all share, everybody unmute yourself, and let's say some reasons why somebody might have an opinion that spring is better than fall.
Beautiful flowers.
Okay.
It's the season of renewal and rebirth.
Okay.
Warmer weather.
Okay. Now let's do the why not. Now, what are we doing here? We're looking at multiple perspectives. So I'm going to do a why not, which is, allergies. A lot of people really suffer with allergies. And while spring might be my very favorite season, other people, now what we're doing is we are developing empathy. We are developing understanding of people who are not exactly like us. We're developing an understanding of why some people might not like the things we like. So I'll say allergies. What's another why not?
So where
Tornado
it's a
season.
oh. I was gonna say where it's a season that can give renewal and rebirth, it also rains a lot. So that could be depressing for others.
Yes. So people who have seasonal affective
Mowing the lawn.
disorder. Yeah. What, Tracy?
I said mowing the lawn.
Yeah. You have to do more work outside. Let's try it out with fall. What's the reason that somebody might choose fall?
Halloween.
Okay.
Cooler temperatures.
Fall
Fall
season.
clothing.
Flannel shirts.
I kind of want to know more about that, Dylan. Okay, why would somebody not?
I like a good flannel shirt.
I do too. Why would somebody not want it to be fall? Let's try to step into somebody else's shoes. Why might not that be a good thing for somebody?
All allergies.
Fall allergies, yes.
The time change.
It gets
Yeah.
darker earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Breaking leaves. And pine
Okay.
straw.
All right. So now what I'm going to do is put up the slide that has the sentence frames. And I want you to write a would you rather. And your choices are fall and spring, always fall or always spring. And I want you to use these sentence frames to spur your thinking. And I want you to state your opinion and at least 2 reasons. And when you're finished, drop it in the chat. So we have a couple of examples there already. Catherine and Paige. Now Lauren. Okay, about 30 more seconds. All right, so we started out when I first showed you this, would you rather? And we started from like Batman or Superman or whatever the easy, the like frivolous, from frivolous to more complex. And now we have gone through looking at the standard and using the sentence stems and thinking about coordinating and subordinating conjunctions. We have gone to some really sophisticated writing. And now I'm going to share my screen and I want you to look at the argument standard from 10th grade. Write arguments to support claims and an analysis of substantive topics or text using valid reasoning and relevant and sufficient evidence. So unmute yourself, and when you see a part of this, A, B, C, D, or E, comment on the parts of it that we hit in our responses. So we went from just simply an opinion and some reasons all the way up to hitting a lot of things in the 10th grade standard.
I see clear, precise claims that are distinguished from the alternate or opposing claims.
Mhm.
I see the fair
See an
counterclaim.
organization.
Y'all always talk at the same time, Hannah and Dylan.
Sorry.
Who wants to go first?
I'll cede the floor.
I just said that I think that you can see the counterclaims that are developed fairly. Lots of people supplied those in their writing.
So that's B. And doing the why and why not chart, just that quick, why would you want this? Why would you maybe somebody not want this? The why and why not really gets that 10B in there. Evidence for each. Okay, what else? Dylan, what were you going to say?
I noticed the the organization that establishes clear relationship among reasons, evidence, claims, counterclaims. There's clear organization and structure to what we just did.
And it was the sentence frames that added that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. I love that. And I would also argue that the sentence frames establish that formal style and objective tone. What was somebody saying and I interrupted?
It wasn't anything important. I was saying Dylan's yes, ma'am is like a disease. He's been trying to stop for years and he just can't.
Okay. All right. So to review what we just did with the would you rather, we took something that can be very frivolous. And if you go to the internet and Google would you rather, you're just going to find a ton of would you rather things that you can stick up on the board each day. But that's not necessarily going to make students better writers and thinkers unless you bump it up with the planning, the why and why not, and then the frames, and really connect it to the standard. And you'd be really surprised at how quickly they just do that in a routine fashion. And that really adds to their argument writing. It's teaching actual writing skills. Okay, so let's just everybody unmute. Let's just have a conversation about would you rather as routine writing to make arguments better and to help with understanding other people's perspectives.
Well, I think with would you rather, especially with even starting with some of those frivolous things, because those are you get some pretty big good discussion, even out of some of those frivolous things, you know, even with like Superman and Batman, they start getting like super detailed into what each one can do. And it kind of opens up that conversation. It makes them start thinking about that. And then as you bump it up into those higher level types of things, different ways you can pull in literature, those kind of things, they really have to start thinking more, and they realize that they're missing something. So they have to kind of go and get it, you know, from the text or from whatever it may be that you're using. So I think that is very valuable, not just in the writing and reading, but just in the getting them to think part as well. And I think a lot of writing instruction does an okay job of the writing, maybe the reading, but the thinking part is missing. We're not getting that. And I think Would You Rather is a good way to kind of keep that going.
I really liked the step with the planning, especially having them see, you know, reasons why for both and why not for both. I could see how this would be really valuable, especially with more sensitive topics at the beginning of these discussions, to develop that empathy, that extra step of planning, and maybe even some teacher guided planning.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I'll say too, in my mind, this, and just from personal experience with having a large group of struggling readers, I feel like the Would You Rather kind of levels the playing field, and it gives them a voice, where it's not necessarily right or wrong, but they get a chance to voice their opinion about something and back it up with evidence, with some of the frivolous things or topics that aren't necessarily tied to a text at that time. And I think that them being able to start out with that kind of will build their confidence and have them more comfortable once we, you know, move to tying it to a text or something that we're reading in class.
I totally agree with that, Terica. So start it out with the frivolous, and then as they get comfortable, bump it up, bump it up, bump it up. So always be bumping it up as the students get comfortable with a certain level, make it more and more sophisticated. So I'm going to share my screen again, and you'll see that this is the Would You Rather page in the Canvas course. And, you know, we've looked at some of it. Here's the PowerPoint. I've linked all the slideshows and things into the actual Canvas course. And then what you're going to do in Canvas is choose either Print Books, eBooks, or community college versus 4-year university. And you're going to write a Would You Rather, or you could use bottled water, tap water. Okay. I gave you some choices, and you're going to write a Would You Rather and then post it, you know, in the forum. And you'll see that once you get in there and really start exploring. I've put tons of PowerPoints. I always say PowerPoints, Google Slides. I make Google Slides and I call them PowerPoints. But I've put tons of slideshows in there that you can actually use with your students. But I want you as the teacher to do it yourself, like we just did. And you put that on the You Try It Out forum. And then there's a forum for you to post student work. So things that you've done with your students, and you can post that there in the Canvas. So now we're going to do one other thing from the Canvas course. And this is a huge part of C3WP, and it is Say, Mean, Matter. So some of you may not know that say mean matter comes from Kelly Gallagher's book, Deeper Reading, but he got it from Sheridan Blau, who was the director of the South Coast Writing Project in California. And Sheridan always said that when you're reading a text, the only important thing is, what does the text say? What does the text mean? And why does that even matter? So Kelly Gallagher got that from just a conversation with Sheridan Blau, a writing project director. And then Kelly made it into, like a classroom strategy that he used with his students. And now, people all over the nation, including us, we use it with our students, and it's in the C3WP. And, but, it comes from Kelly's book, Deeper Reading. And so basically it's, what does the text say? What does it mean? Why does it matter? And so in the Canvas module, I've put a handout that has some templates. And then there's a slideshow, but I linked all the slideshows, but I also just embedded them. And so I'm going to stop that share, and we're going to look at it in the slideshow that I have made that I use with teachers a lot. And so it's say, mean, matter. What does the text say? What does it mean? Why does it matter? So it's a strategy that can be used in all grades and subjects. It helps with reading comprehension. It helps with critical thinking skills and with writing skills. So this little poster that I found really perfectly describes it. So students will take some evidence from a text, so like lift a quote or text evidence, and they say, according to, and then they say what the person says or what the text says. And then students have to really use their brain to think critically about, what does that mean? So what does this text mean? And then why does that even matter? So like, what is the big global significance of this? Why does it matter to our lives? Why does it matter to our community? Why does it matter to the world? Okay, so we're going to practice here with a Babe Ruth quote. And Babe Ruth once said, never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. Okay, so that's the say. We know what he said. We have our quote. But what does that even mean? What does it mean to, don't let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game? What does that mean? We would have to really critically analyze that and think about it with our brains. And then once we've done that, okay, well, why does that matter? How could that make a difference in people's lives? So in the Canvas course, there's a handout that has some of these signal phrases and commentary stems. So what I like to do when I'm working with students or teachers is just to do a think aloud. So I could say, I have my quote here, never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. And I can say, Babe Ruth states, never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. Or I could say, in Babe Ruth's view, you should, and then I'll put in quotes, never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. Or I could say, according to Babe Ruth, we should not let the fear of striking out keep us from playing the game. Or I could say, Babe Ruth reminds us that, okay? So these phrases are phrases that signal that I am about to be saying what somebody else really said, okay? And then these stems over here are commentary. These top ones are for what does the text mean? And the bottom ones are, why does it matter? So Babe Ruth said this, or according to Babe Ruth, or in Babe Ruth's view, then my quote, then I can say, basically this means, or this demonstrates, or this suggests or implies, and then I say, why does it matter? This persuades us to do something. Knowing this will encourage us to, if we do this, this will happen. If we do not do this, this will happen, okay? So I have a model here, and I love to color code. And so I have, this is, what does the text say? What does it mean? Why does it matter? So I've played around with this, and I have used my sentence phrases here, my signal phrases and commentary stems, and I wrote this paragraph. In Babe Ruth's view, you should never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. This suggests that people who aren't willing to take a risk will never get good at doing something. This persuades us to not be afraid of failure in our quest to succeed. If everyone tried to avoid failure, there would be no successful people, baseball players or otherwise. Now, sometimes you don't have to use an exact stem, but the thinking is from the stems. All right, so that's an example of say, mean, matter. And that was a quote about persistence, right? You don't let the fear of striking out keep you from trying. You just have to keep on trying. You might strike out, but don't let that make you stop. And so you can Google all sorts of quotes to have your students do a say, mean, matter with, just for practice, just to flex that muscle of using those sentence stems. And so in the PowerPoint, at this point, I usually have teachers try it out, okay? So I'd have teachers look at, like choose one of these quotes about education and write a say, mean, matter using the sentence frames, okay? But just like with the would you rather, we start with the frivolous, and not that quotes are frivolous, okay? That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that is the light, like the light thing that you start out with is famous quotes. But what you want to quickly do is translate say, mean, matter to essay writing. So here's an example, and this is from a 5th grade student that I worked with in Forest County a couple of years ago. And I had these students writing a literary analysis essay, and they were analyzing Gary Soto's The Marble Champ. And this is an example of how students use say, mean, matter in an essay. So I just want to read it to you, and I want to see if you can hear the say, like what the text says, what it means, why it matters. So remember, this is literary analysis. Even after Lupe's marble shooting thumb got stronger, she continued working hard to get better and better. The text states that Lupe squeezed an eraser for an hour to make her thumb even stronger and ate dinner with her left hand to spare her shooting thumb. This illustrates that Lupe never quit working hard to move closer and closer to her goal of being a champion at marbles. Soto wants the reader to understand that if we don't work hard to meet our goals, we will never have our dreams come true. All right, so unmute yourself and tell me, where is the say?
The text states that Lupe squeezed an eraser for an hour to make her thumb even stronger and ate dinner with her left hand.
Yes. So this is what the text actually says. So that is the say, okay? And I have students do this too. Like when they're writing an analysis, basically what an analysis is what does the text say? What does it mean? Why does it matter? Okay. So where is the mean portion?
This illustrates that Lupe never quit working hard to move closer and closer to the goal of being a champion at marbles.
So that's what that little piece of evidence means. And where is the matter, which is the greater global significance for our lives, our community, the world? It's the rest of it, right? Soto wants the reader to understand that if we don't work hard to meet our goals, we will never have our dreams come true. Okay. So here's where, I've like done the highlighting. And when you're writing a literary analysis, you start with a little summary, so that part is summary. All right, so let's go back up here. We had this illustrates, the text says, we had if we did, Soto wants the reader to know that if we do not work hard, our dreams will not come true. Okay, so that's the if then. All right. So what students can do, so we're always bumping it up a notch, right? So we'll start with like some quotes and we'll give them the frames. And then we'll start having them translate it to some evidence from text. What does that mean? Why does it matter? And then we're going to bump it up a notch and have them like actually do some authorizing. Okay. So I've added these authorizing frames. So how do you authorize the quote? So we wouldn't just say, Babe Ruth says, we would do some like, what's his authority? So Albert Einstein said, the important thing is not to stop questioning. So we might say Albert Einstein, a noted physicist, or Albert Einstein, a Nobel Prize winning physicist. So we say, what is their expertise? Or Soto, who, wrote the piece of literature. And so you bump it up by adding the authorizing frames. So most of you who are really familiar with C3WP know that you authorize, you use signal phrases to introduce text, and you write commentary about the text. So this is how say, mean, matter really, really helps with not only civic arguments, but also literary analysis when you're writing those. So here's an example. Albert Einstein, a famous physicist, insists, this is the say, the important thing is not to stop questioning. So then the means is this suggests knowing this, and then the matters is usually an if then. All right. So this is an example of how just something that you can do routinely and quickly at the beginning of a class period can really bump up the quality of not only text analysis, but argument writing. So that's the say, the mean, the matter. So I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to go back to the Canvas course and share that one. And I'm going to kind of walk you through some things that you'll need to do. My internet is very slow. Some things that you'll need to do between now and next week in the Canvas course. And I've tried to go ahead and introduce you to as much of it as possible. So that it won't take you a long, long, long time. So if you did not already introduce yourself, then you'll need to do that. Tonight, we did the overview of the course and we did the low stakes versus high stakes. We also did would you rather, we did say, mean, matter. But there are some other things, for you to do there. Just some really quick, like the things that I just went over with you, those PowerPoints and the try it out, that's basically what is in every single module. Like, this is what the Atwoodian table is. Try it out. This is what a kernel essay is. Try it out. And then you're going to do writing into the day. This is what it is. Try it out. Writing into the day with images. This is what it is. Try it out. I did add in some SEL writing prompts. Several of us at the site have been studying the SEL standards, and I've been working with districts on writing social emotional writing prompts. Our kids really need those. And so I decided to put that in this module. So this try it and reflect is where you try something, you post your say, mean, matter, or you post your would you rather, or you post your kernel essay. And then there's also a little forum for student work. So you may not get to that this week, but anytime over the course of the year that, like if your kids do a really good writing across, writing into the day, or a really good say, mean, matter, or a really good would you rather, drop those in there so that we'll start to collect all of that student work. So what I'm going to do now is put you in some breakout rooms for about 5 minutes. And I want you to talk about some of the things you learned tonight and some things that you really, like something new that you learned and that you are very eager to try out. So you'll be in 2 breakout rooms. These are totally random assignments. So in just a second, you're going to get an invitation to join one. So join the one that you get. And come back here in 5 minutes and talk about what you discussed.
Didn't even think about that, Terica. You're exactly right.
Like Summer Institute 2.0 in here.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll say that the thing that really resonated with me that I can't wait to get back to my room to try is, I guess, the beefing up of the would you rather. That's something that I already do, so it will be really easy to kind of take it to the next level. I loved the like the planning chart and the opposing views, and so that's a really easy way to go ahead and introduce them to I guess the argument and the culture of argument, and responding to the opposing views, and even using the coordinating and subordinating stems. Like it made me think of the accountable talk stems that we kind of use with the argument when you're writing. So like I can't wait to go back and actually implement that. I feel like that would be something that my students would do really well with. And even the part of, because we're reading right now, the one and only Ivan, like I mentioned earlier. So like giving them a choice of a character and then providing evidence from the text to support the reason why they would want to be that character.
Tarek, I was kind of thinking the same thing because, I've been doing a lot of work where we're practicing writing and we're integrating those language standards. But I feel like doing it this way, I'm hitting even more. Like I'm beefing it up to the point where we're doing the argument standards. It's not just writing, it's argument and it's language standards and it's all these other things I need to be doing. So just, having that kind of direction and that focus, I feel much more centered with it now.
I think one of the things with Would You Rather too, that I think we kind of overlook some is that it also allows students to see that their own thoughts and things that they already
it's so simple, but not like it's simple, but it's so complex and such good stuff at the same time.
Yes, it's one of those things that it is simple, but then you have to think about all of the planning that it takes, to look through specific quotes that you want to use or to that you think would be beneficial, or to with the literary analysis, the say mean matter, like which ones do you want to do that with, or just do it with all of them, or it's just the way of it.
Matter. I guess I've never really haven't connected this until today, but I think it really is going to help them think about which quotes matter for their point that they're trying to make. And so it would be really good with connecting evidence to a claim, like to hone in on that and do it a little bit better, at least in my classroom, do it a little smarter.
Well, we kind of stopped talking once you got here.
Sorry. And I typically manually assign breakouts, and I thought I'm just going to hit that random choice, and all the purpose people ended up in the same. And Dylan and Catherine ended up, I would have never done that, but whatever.
I love this group. I love all of them. I haven't seen Carolyn forever. I'm like, Cheryl.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, if y'all will just decide something you want to share from your breakout with the big group, and then you can go on back to the main room when you've done that.
Structure, like how it can connect what was said before and after. So the would you rather is something I definitely want to start using more in the classroom, and we have been going over character development recently, and I have never thought about using would you rather to make them pick between a character and a story. And I think that would be a good way to get them to start looking at those characteristics and maybe digging a little bit deeper with it as well.
I hate to interrupt, but if y'all as a group, choose a thing or two that you want to share with the whole group, like some big takeaways from tonight. And once you've done that, come on back to the main room. Okay, so I think this is all of us. Who wants to share from the purpose room? I was telling the purpose people, if I had manually assigned the breakouts, which I always do, they wouldn't have all been in the same room, and Dylan and Catherine wouldn't have been in the same room. But I just took the lazy way out and just did automatically assign, and I cannot believe how Zoom automatically assigned you. But from the Purvis room, Purvis and Cheryl.
We discussed heavily that like the would you rather, it wasn't necessarily a new concept, but the level of depth and complexity that we noticed when using the sentence frames and connecting it to the standards, it was just sadly something we hadn't considered about how in-depth it could be. My son loves to do those in 4th grade, and I've seen our social studies teacher, I'm part of her Google Classroom, and I've seen her use those for writing into the days and stuff. I'm like, oh, that's a fun way to get kids engaged, and that's a fun, but it's so much more than fun. And it wasn't until I guess right now that I realized all the complexity that comes with it, and the level of, you know, the depth and everything that goes with it, and the connecting to the standards. And one thing that the ladies pointed out too was that you can use it across all subject areas, like what was mentioned in the slideshow. So that's really cool. And I know, like when Cheryl was talking about her PLCs and non-negotiables and stuff like that, I mean, I think that is cool that that's something we can talk about in grade level meetings. It's something we can talk about in PLC. It's something that across 6th through 8th grade, across all of our subjects, you know, to increase school-wide literacy and things like that. That's something that we can do. So there's so many benefits to that. And of course, the Same Matter, we're talking about how just being a part of this, the South Mississippi Writing Project and C3WP, there's just a wealth of knowledge and resources that sometimes we forget things, such as like Same Matter. Again, it seems so simple. It's like, why aren't we thinking to use this more?
Yeah.
But it's something that we kind of overlook sometimes, but coming back to it, it's like, it's so rich. And so we definitely want to start using that more.
Good. The other room.
We kind of focused on and talked about how the would you rather kind of resonated with us as well. I know for me, it's not something that's new, so it would be really easy to take something that they're already kind of used to doing and beefing it up a little bit. I loved the organizational chart, the planning chart, which had them to look at opposing views, and also mentioned how it's kind of like an easy way to like ease into the argument culture, and using the coordinating and subordinating stems to counter or address the counter argument. And also it reminded me of the accountable talk stems that you would use anyway when you are having a culture of argument in your class. So like, I'm really excited to go back and model this and to have my students to get into doing it.
I had also mentioned in my group, along with that would you rather, like having them highlight certain aspects, because I was telling them, like some of my students, almost every time I had them write, I'll mention, hey, make sure you use transitional phrases. And they're like, okay, what's that? Can you give me a list? And there's like so much more than I can actually make a list for. And if I have them practicing to highlight what's there and like even sharing with one another when they do that, then they're going to develop like their understanding of transitional phrases and like start adding some more to their own list that they could create. But also I really liked how, like when you mentioned would you rather, and you have like the choice between two characters, like how it can help them like go into the standard, because like we've been going over development of a character, and like it's not so much just for them to identify like characteristics, but I find that my students want to skip that step, and that would help them kind of go deeper with it and analyze it more with that depth of knowledge.
All right, so I've kept you longer than I intended to, but you know, at the beginning of the meeting, we waited around for Virginia. I still don't know if she intends to join us or not. I did remember to record, and I'll send the recording to Andrea and Donna. But now I want to share my screen for your next steps. So I cannot wait to meet with y'all next week in room 105 of Owings McQuaid. It's a huge room for such a small group of people, but you know, that's okay. Feel free to bring your supper, you know, because we're meeting from what, 5 to 8:15. Yeah, so, you know, bring food with you, that's fine. But between now and then, you're gonna do Canvas Module 1, which is routine writing. And if you get a chance to try any of these things out in your classroom, you know, post them in the student forum. And then just try to enjoy it. Just, you know, just like don't look at it like as a class, because just because we're doing things in Canvas between times, you know, this is writing project work. So, you know, just enjoy it, you know, work at your own pace. You might even like tonight, if you can, just finish it, you know, just like work through it tonight. I think it'll take you about 3.5 hours, I think, but it might take you less, or it might take you a little more. So that just kind of gives you, when I submitted the CEUs for this, I said that the interim Canvas work would take about 3.5 hours. That's what I estimated. So I love the writing project because we get paid to learn together. And we're going to pay for 5 CEUs for anybody who wants it. Just a quick show of hands, who might want these CEUs? Okay, good. All right. All right, well, I'll be seeing you in the Canvas online, and I'll also see you all next Thursday night at 5 in person. Don't forget your mask, that's a requirement. And don't forget your food if you want to eat something. You know, in writing project, we always put out a ton of food, but we can't do that right now with the COVID stuff. So you have to bring your own snacks and drinks. All right, y'all. Good to see everybody.